All right, we're back with chapter 7 in Mounce's grammar, and it is the genitive and dative cases in the first and second declension. These cases will complete the primary cases that we use. We've talked about the nominative and accusative. There's another case in the 5-case system. It's the vocative case, which we'll learn later. So this will get you introduced to all of the nouns except the third declension, which comes a little bit later on. So anyway, if you look at this, you'll notice the exegetical insight and the overview, as you see in other chapters, and please read that. Then you'll notice the English grammar, where he deals with the possessive case and the indirect object in English, and then he moves into the corresponding cases in Greek that are like those, the genitive case and the dative case. The genitive case shows possession. You don't indicate that in Greek with an apostrophe or S or an apostrophe after an S, but rather it's indicated by the genitive case, and it is you'll see how it is written as you look at the examples in section 7.3 and 7.4. So look carefully at that, and we'll come back and look at some examples in just a moment. The next thing he does is to introduce you in 7.5 to the dative case. The dative case really has a wide range of functions. It is marked by several little prepositions that help you to remember it, to or with or in or by, some of the other things. But it does not only indirect object. If you remember what the indirect object is in English, it functions the same way in Greek, but it also is the what in the 8-case system, which is what I learned to start with in Greek. Not many people teach that now because there are only 5 forms, even though there are 8 cases. But it also includes not only the dative, but also the locative, which locates, the instrumental, which shows you instrument or means in language. And we'll learn that as we move along and as we think more about the function of words. But right now we were going to stay with the form, which is the dative case. Now, what we want to point out to you is section 7.7, where he talks about subscript, and that is simply writing the iota under another vowel in the form of a dot. You'll see that, and we'll certainly learn that as we move along. We'll talk about that more in the class, but pay close attention to that if you will, because it can be confusing, but that's a part of the spelling of the word again, so you need to make sure that you learn that. Now be sure to note the genitive and dative case endings as he lists them. You have them listed 2 ways in section 7.8. One is the endings alone for the masculine, feminine, and neuter. And so he's listing nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative. So it's the full paradigm of the first and second declension. And then he does that with the final vowel of the stem attached. Again, that's the way I learned them. It makes more sense to me in some ways, probably because that's the way I learned them. But as Mounce points out, these things do vary from place to place. And if you learn them like he's talking about, learn them simply with the final letter, then that'll probably do you better. But I would put both of these in a notebook and just keep them with you so that you would have them. But having those endings, learning those endings, memorize those endings, I'm gonna ask you along the way to write those down. Not in this assignment, but I will a little bit later on. Then on the next page, I'd also keep that paradigm, that is the entire word, with the stem and the ending put together. So that will help you. He has some hints there in 7:9, and I would pay close attention to that. Now he does the article in 7:10. I've talked about that. There is a definite article in Greek, like the English word the. There is no indefinite article in Greek. It simply does, nothing appears with the word. Sometimes it could be translated a or and if it begins with a vowel. But what you want to learn is the forms of the definite article. Because remember, as I pointed out in the last video, when the article appears with the noun, it's going to agree in case, number, and gender, which is what you need to know about a noun. So if you recognize the forms of the article, then you will also know the forms of the noun. Now that's true in first, second, and third declension nouns, all three. It's true in nominative, in the masculine, feminine, and neuter nouns as well. So whatever you see, you're going to see the article in this form, like you see it in section 7:10 on the bottom of page 46. So you really want to learn that. Look on the next page; you'll see it connected with the word logos. In the masculine, and graphe in the feminine, and ergon in the neuter. So you want to look closely at that. The halftime review, well, again, will give you an opportunity to go back and make sure that you've gotten a grip on what you're talking about. Then you have three more of the 8 noun rules. You'll want to memorize those, and you'll also want to be putting them together in your notebook. In fact, let me go ahead and mention now that if you go back to the back of the Mounce grammar to pages 344 through 46, you're going to see a good summary of nouns. And I would encourage you just to copy those pages and put them in your notebook. If you do that, you're going to have basically the information that you're going to need. You probably need to add some other things along the way, but you'll have your master case ending chart. You'll have your 8 noun rules. You'll have your first and second, and even if you go on over to page 348, you'll have first, second, and third declension noun forms. So it'll be a very valuable thing, and you can certainly use that on any test that you do later on, not in your quizzes right now, because you need to do this memorization and need to be motivated to do that. Okay. He mentions in 7:13 some partially declined words. Those are primarily proper nouns. Read that. That's all you need to do. Simply read what he says, and then an alternate first declension pattern. And that deals with some words in the first declension, primarily feminine nouns, that are going to change back and forth. Read carefully. Some stems end in alpha, and some end in eta, and some are preceded by epsilon, iota, or rho. And if they do that, then they begin to behave strangely, and as many other words do. So you want to read carefully what he says. Don't worry about learning or memorizing all of this now. There'll be some things that will come along a little later that will help you to do that. Let's talk about parsing a little bit in 7:15, and that's what he is talking about there. I just want to remind you that you will be parsing. You have a lot of tools to do that. I know that through BibleWorks or Logos or Accordance, if you have any of those programs, and there's several others. Some of you have mentioned some already in the tools. These can be very helpful. And again, I have no problem with you using those as you do your exercises, as long as you will make sure that you are thinking through what you're doing, because you certainly can learn that way. But what the goal is for you to look at a word and be able to tell by looking at that word what the case, number, and gender is when you're dealing with nouns. So be sure to do that, and we'll be doing exercises, and we'll be talking about that more in the class on when the first class comes up. Actually, the first class is already passed before this exercise, so it'll be the second class. We'll be talking about that more as well. All right, in 7:16, he gives you some translation tips, and then he gives you some very good points in this summary on page 49. So I encourage you to pay close attention to that. Now look at the vocabulary, if you will. And again, you will notice that he is giving you the word. If you've already read this in the last chapter, like hamartia, which is the word for sin, and then he adds an alpha sigma with a hyphen in front of it. That shows you the genitive form, and that helps you to know something about those changes in the way things go based on the presence of certain letters and so forth. But you'll learn that simply as you go along is the best way to do it. Not worry about it, but just see it, learn it that way, if you can remember that. And particularly, as he's pointed out to you, learn the definite article along with those words. All right? So let's pronounce these quickly. Hamartia is sin. Arche, beginning. Gar, that's another post-positive. It means for or then or probably a few other things. And then he introduces a verb to you, and it's an inflected verb. So all you want to do is just learn that it means he, she, or it said, and the word is apen. And then eis, that's a preposition. Exousia, euangelion, you notice the two gammas together, the nasal gamma that we've talked about before. Jesus, the proper name. Kurios, it means Lord. Me is the negative. It is like u, but it is used in different moods and so forth. So you learn that as you go. And then Uranos is heaven, and then Hutas. And then on the top of the next page, Su, Huyas, notice the rough breathing mark, and Hoste. The previous words, again, as you have time, go back and look at what he asks you to look at there. Then look at the exegetical materials. All right, then we move over to the workbook and exercise 7 there. You will see, you can look through that and see that it deals with the genitive and the dative. And what I want to do is point out to you, as you will see in the PowerPoint also, I want to point out to you what I'm asking you to do, and that will be to do write out the forms of the article in the table there. Learn your vocabulary, of course. Then do your warm-up exercise and translate sentences 2, 3, 4, 7, and 10, as is indicated in the syllabus and in the PowerPoint. Now let me say just a word about the weekly quiz, because it's coming up. It's due on Saturday, September 3rd, and that quiz is for you to review the vocabulary in chapters 6 and 7 and the forms of the article. I can just tell you up front, I'm going to ask you to write the forms of the article. It's not an open book test, remember. It's an honor system, so be sure to learn that and learn it well. So just to review again, your vocabulary quiz, your vocabulary words in chapter 6 and 7, the forms of the article. Those are the things that you need to make sure that you're getting ready for this quiz. All right, so that should take care of it for this time, and we'll see you back on the video with chapter 8 coming up soon.